Friends, family and keepers of the faith, welcome to another Del Boy blog, and as always I'm going to date stamp this. It's year 5 blog 16, or in legacy numbers blog number 224, and it's dated the 7th of the 6th 2026. Yeah, my god, we're in June, moving very fast, and I won't keep you or bore you with this. The weather's been absolutely awful, I feel, this week. Rain. But before all of that started, I managed to do a little bit with the lawn. It was very difficult, but I took my time Monday. And then it's been raining ever since, and the grass is growing again and looking greener than it ever was. So that's good stuff. But everything else is on a personal note, which I do a little bit later. So we'll get the news out the way, which I find absolutely awful and is just a date stamp. Remember, this isn't really a blog, it's a diary. It's supposed to say what's happened in the world this week. So this is what I picked up this morning. PM Keir Starmer dug in and vowed to fight any internal leadership contest. I suppose that's really a bit of news that really will date stamp this, because Keir Starmer is our PM, and basically there is a leadership battle on now after those by-elections, those local elections that we had several weeks ago. So it needs to be there. Next one, Foreign Secretary, so political again on him, David Lammy, challenged incoming US political figures regarding handling of the Henry Newark murder. I don't know too much about this, but I do know a little bit about that murder. I'm pretty sure that's the the student that was in its first term and was walking away from a celebration who bumped into two lads who ultimately in the end stabbed him with a ritual type knife, and then told the police that it was a racial attack on them. I believe there was a lot of body cam evidence, if I remember rightly, that seemed to indicate that the police did not handle the scene very well, and it's started protests and everything. So I believe that's going on because of the ultimate sentencing of the individuals that stabbed him. It was a terrible story, and I believe that's what's going on at the moment. But again, I only know a little bit of the news. I've not been following it very closely at all because of my own internal situation with how my life goes at the moment, with my looking after my mum. Next story, again, if you're not a royalist or anything, Princess Anne's son Peter Philip has married his sweetheart NHS nurse Harriet Sperling, I think her name is, in private, in a rain-soaked ceremony attended by senior members of the royal family. Well, a nice little story, even if you're not a royalist. Weddings are lovely. They show, think life is moving on. Life may be starting again if it's deemed that's what needs to happen between the couple. So yeah, brilliant. Next story made me smile. It says here, Steven Spielberg surprised all by attending a local London pub quiz, and then it says to promote his new film. So I know a little bit about his new film, but my God, wouldn't it be funny if Steven Spielberg suddenly went into the local that I've got round the corner and joined a pub quiz? Wow, that's sort of like a Twilight Zone episode, isn't it? I mean, my God. Other news, England won 1-0 in the friendly against New Zealand, but manager criticised them for playing too much freestyle football. Now, I saw a little bit of this because when I got my mum to bed, the first half was nearly finished, and that's because These are friendlies being played out in the country of the World Cup, which is just about to start, and it's in America. So just like my Formula One that I watch, where if it's in a foreign country, you're all over the place when it in regards to when it actually starts. So what I saw was pretty awful, to be quite honest. I thought I was watching below Championship League, to be quite honest. When I read the news, apparently this New Zealand side has not won anything, and has lost actually with scores of like 4-1 or 4-0 or something. So playing England, won 1-0, got a goal just at the end of the first half. Sounds very much cringeworthy from what I can tell, but I didn't see it all, so I can't say. The next one is in a poll. The results showed that 1 in 10 university graduates intend to leave the UK as jobs are too hard to find. Yeah, we've seen this and heard of this before, where you get a person, they go to university, they get all of their qualifications, and then they go foreign, go over into another country, using all of that education that we gave. And most of the time that I've heard that story has been when people have come in from another country, got our qualification and then gone off. Now it's internal, our own. And, you know, education is something that we're very, very proud of over here in the UK. You know, it just shows that when people in, say, sitcoms or in dramas, they say, oh, where did you study? Oh, Oxford University, Cambridge University, you know, that they're going, oh, you know, you're pretty well up, well read, all that sort of stuff. It maybe it's based on the past and laurels and all of that sort of stuff, but you know, it still matters today. And you know, so you know, I suppose it's as much to my American friends and when they say they went to Harvard, you know. So yeah, it's poor, isn't it? 1 in 10. And I know that there's a problem as well with loan systems and all sorts of stuff in going to colleges or anything. You know, paying it back. How can you do that without a job? You know, it's all like that. So yeah, not particularly great. And so I've got no opinions much about the news, just to say that's date stamped this. Pretty sure that if I look back in a year, I'd recognize some of those things that are in there. So this week then, weather-wise, as I told you before, bloody poor. Really, really bad. But not so bad that it's blown fences over or anything. It's just that, you know, even where I've wanted to do things with those plants, say, it's been very, very difficult. The good news is there was little bits of time. I did manage to get the hanging baskets done. When I got to the end of putting all the pots in, I was left with 6 plants. So actually, where I was thinking, oh my God, I've got all these plants, I've bought way too many, I actually was pretty darn close to what was just needed. A couple of things that came out of it. The hanging baskets that we had out the front are pretty much rotted and rusted. They're hanging baskets, so they come on a chain. It's like a tri-chain with a hook. And with those rusted, it's pretty hard to get the chain to go round the hanging basket. But the hanging baskets themselves were made of wicker with a felt inner lining, and the wicker part was really, really brittle. I'm pretty sure the birds have had a hack at it to take away slivers of it and use in their nests. So, but they are several years old. You're really not supposed to. The hanging baskets that my mum used to buy used to be full hanging baskets that you bought from garden centres that you're really supposed to throw away at the end of the season and buy a new one. But I tell you what, this is the weird thing I've noticed about that. You go into a garden centre or you go into a B&Q or whatever it is and you see the hanging baskets. They're like 35, 40 quid, right? And when you buy the plants singularly, it comes to something like a tenner, right? So you're spending like £25 for this hanging basket. But if you go to the part where it says hanging baskets, you can also buy them for a tenner. So am I really spending that much money on the peat that goes into them? I mean, I just find it ridiculous. It's almost like, yeah, somebody in the store is paid on an hourly rate and you're going to be paying for those per basket, right? So it's almost like that person spent an hour doing my hanging basket when they probably got around about 15 or 20 of them done in that hour. I don't know. It all seems like greed and profiteering to me, but there you go. So yeah, that's the weather and some of the things that are out of the way. We'll get to the bit about my week then, I think. As you know, I'm not quite at work yet. The D-Day for work for me at the very latest is, let me see if I can get the calendar up, is the 15th. I go to the doctor's on the 9th, where we'll be discussing where we go next, whether I need an MRI scan, whatever it is. The 15th is D-Day, mostly because of pay. Anybody that knows the system in regards to sickness, you get so many weeks and then you're on benefits pay, which would drastically reduce my income and really would affect how I look after my mum. So regardless of how much pain I'm in, and I'm still in a lot of pain, as noted by when I wake up in the morning, I need to sort that out faster. I have, on the note of where I am, for me, I'll tell you the good news. But yes, that's what needs to happen in regards to pay. So I'll need to go back on that date. In regards to how I'll return, it will be a phased return. That's all been agreed. So I won't be doing totally an 8-hour day from the start. It'll probably be more like 5-6 hours for a week, maybe 2, and then build up to 8. So that's going to be good as well. So all of that is in place. It really does help me an awful lot to know that work think along the same lines and want me to succeed. So that's really filled me with a lot of hope and stuff. In regards to me, as I said, I got some of the plants done. That was great. So that was a win-win. In regards to sorting out my health, let me just explain what I meant by when I wake up. When I wake up, I will have been in bed without taking a tablet for, say, 6 to 8 hours. Now, when I'm awake, I take my tablets and I do the jobs that I need to do, and then I take tablets as I need them during the day, and then I take my tablets late at night. So what I'm trying to say there, during the day, I don't take half as amount of the tablets that I take at the beginning and the end. But an 8-hour gap means that my tablets have worn off. Do you see what I mean? So when I wake up and I sit at the end of the bed, it's very difficult for me to get my socks on, my pants on, anything like that. So it can be very, very difficult for me. Because I have to take those tablets and I then have to have them take effect. So my morning starts very early and the tablets are just about kicked in when my sister arrives. So that beginning morning where I have to get my mum her breakfast, fill the flask with tea, which aids greatly with how many times you have to keep going to the kettle to make a cup of tea, because we've got one of these little Breville tea makers that make 1 cup. Do you know what I mean? It's not a kettle. All of that sort of stuff, and getting all of the utensils ready, you know, the bags, the pads, the flannels, all of that sort of stuff, and giving my mum her medicine has to be done before that point my sister arrives. Now, it's good practice because that's what will be needed when I go back to work. I'll need to continue that because my sister's duties will be needed to do some of the work that I do, but it'll be things like putting the clothes in the washer, then transferring them from the washer into the dryer, then taking them out of the dryer and putting them somewhere so that when I finish work, that job's done. It won't involve the breakfast, say. When my sister arrives, it can't be at the point where she hasn't been given her medicine and she hasn't had her breakfast, because there's got to be a good time gap between when she has her dinner and all of that. So those are the things that in our head we've now got a time sort of stamp on where we need to do these things. So yeah, I have to battle through that pain to get through that. So that's that little bit. And when it comes to how we maintain my mum, you know, in regards to how we get her pajamas on, how we change the pad, it's still a work in progress. And the little mistakes that we forget to do, they're becoming less frequent. So that's all good news. In regards to how my mum is, as I said, I always consider everything to be a new norm. Now, what's happened this week, she's been more asleep when I tried to feed her breakfast. So I'm feeding her with assisted feeding with her eyes shut, and me turning around and saying, "Mum, open your mouth," which is never a very nice thing to do. If anybody has to try and feed someone and they're nearly asleep or acting asleep, it's really difficult. It's like a baby being given that puree type stuff and then keeping their mouth shut, and you have to use the spoon to sort of like open their mouth and put it in, and then they're going like this, you know, when they're taking their food. It's very much like that. And we never have that problem when we're having to change my mum's pads, because we have to roll her, and that certainly wakes her up. My God, you have to roll someone on their side by physically grabbing hold of their shoulder and lower part of their legs to pull them towards you. They wake up, believe me. So the morning routine is really difficult. Giving my mum her medication is difficult if they're acting asleep, because one of the tablets I have to put into her mouth and push it to the back of her throat so she swallows it. Otherwise, she's sucking it, and that's not good. We need to get the tablets down her. Thank God for the oral medication. You know, there's some of the stuff like paracetamol, which we're given a syringe with, because you pull the liquid into the syringe, put it into her mouth, past her teeth, and you just push the syringe in and it jets down her back and it's through. But certain tablets you can't get oral. Bad news about my mum was we got her prescription that I put in very, very late, and one of the parts of the prescription was never given. I had to therefore fill in another prescription, and I'm waiting for that to be given to us. That was the Senna. Senna is to help her have a good digestive system and soften the stool, if you see what I mean. So hopefully we won't have my mum constipated, and that will be perfectly okay. But when I was talking about the good news for my mum, in the morning when I'm giving her a breakfast, I usually say to my mum, "Mum, would you like to listen to your music?" Because we've got an Alexa, okay? And usually she'll turn around and say, "Yes, please." And I'll say, you know, the word that starts off, and say, "Play Roy Orbison." And basically the music list will start with Roy Orbison. And I was clearing away the breakfast stuff, and when I came back, a tune was on. It was a Roy Orbison tune, because it does mix it up, Amazon, a little bit. And what was it called? Well, there was Crying. That's one. The other one was, I think it was In Dreams. she was actually singing the words. Now, anybody that's got vascular dementia will know that's incredible. Now, whether she's picked up the words again and memorized them, or it's a long-term memory and she knows the words and is singing them, I don't care. To see your mum singing again, wonderful, absolutely marvelous. So that filled me with so much joy, and I told my sister about it and she smiled. We were all extremely happy with that going on, so absolutely marvelous. So that's work, that's me, that's my mum. In regards to topics, which I don't normally bring up, I usually wait for them to come up. I think you'll see there's going to be a familiar topic coming in this blog, and that will be gaming. So when you'll hear words like Guild Wars, say, or gaming codes, you'll know that that's been a big part of this week. And some people that leave comments, which will be very shortly when we get to that section, you'll know that I've been talking about certain stuff, and that's great. One topic I will talk about, though, which is good but bad, if you see what I mean, for me anyway, is decisions have had to have been made with comics for me. And anybody who knows I'm a comic collector. Now, with everything that's been going on with my mum since, let's see, March 2025, I've forgotten that my comic collection. Now, what that basically means is that a bill has been rising with me forgetting about it. And I'm a big Spider-Man collector, and anybody that knows with comics, there are what they call variant covers. I won't bore you with it all, but what happened is I suddenly remembered, and I phoned up my good friend Terry, who works at owns, should I say, the place where I get my comics from. And they said that when I spoke to Terry, she said, I was going to give you a call. And I'm going, yeah, after a year and a half, I thought you might be. But I did apologise. I told her, she knew that my mum's got vascular dementia because I knew that I'd phone them up as soon as it happened. And I said to them, look, what's happened? Did you stop collecting my stuff or did you continue? And they said, no, we continued. And I said, well, that's very nice of you, but I need to know what the bill is. And the bill was very high, very high. And, I said, right, okay, I'm going to have to make some decisions. And, they were very good about it. They've given me a huge discount. And what's happening with Spider-Man at the moment, he's approaching a milestone. And it's one very, very unique to only a few characters. And that is the 1000th issue, the 1000th issue from the very start. Okay. So I think the decision I'm going to make is that when I get to the 1000th issue, a lot of the comics that I've been building up on and buying will go by the wayside and the main core comic will continue. So, and when it comes to the variants, that will stop. So what used to be something that cost me, say, and it never was this, but if it was close to this, £100 a month will drop to a tenner, right? Or £5, £6, something around there. And that means that my collection will still continue as a collection. And I won't totally be what they call jumping off. Now, in my life, I've jumped off of collecting comics twice. Since my dad bought me my first comic when I was 5. So you can imagine it's a very, very big thing that I have to make a decision on. and it's a decision where I'm dropping off by 90%, 95%, and therefore I'm still keeping an ear in, but I'm basically stopping it there and then dead. Some people, when they get to 1,000 issue, I should think, did stop. Went, there you go, I've got this chunk, that's the end. I was going to do that when I got to my pension. Some people will think that's what the sensible should be thing to do, but I think spending a £5 a month on something is the same as me saying I'm going to the pub and having one drink a month. So I think that's a sensible thing what I'm doing, and it means that I'm keeping an eye in something that I totally enjoy. So good thing, bad thing, a bill, good thing, it's in control and I'm not stopping it dead, but I've reduced again my bill and keeping in with a collection to something like a £5 a month. Win-win. Yeah. So that's something else that I've made a decision on. So that's that bit out of the way, and we get to the good bit now, I hope, which is we're going to the shout outs. And just want to say big thank you to anybody that watches this. It really does fill me with joy to know that there are people that see my diary and listen to it along over the course of the week, not always in one go, and basically get enjoyment just by watching. And then certainly for the people that leave a comment, oh my God, thank you so much, because it makes you feel worthwhile and wanted. And you come up with topics that sometimes bring back long-term memories that people want to hear. I've always, when I was first doing this 5 years ago, my friend Mainmeister, who I was on his channel a couple of times, before I did my own channel. The most enjoyment I had as a viewer was listening to his stories of how he even started. I remember back in the day when my mum bought me my first computer, and it was a Tandy or whatever it was. And then the memories he had of having a Spectrum and a Commodore 64, which was a big chunk of his life, and then moving to an Atari ST and then an Amiga. You can imagine I was engrossed. I sort of like invested in his life, and it made me think, that's the thing that I should be doing, getting some people to be invested in my life. That's where this all started. It ended up being an experiment and something that would continue on if it was the only thing that I was doing, because I'm leaving a legacy behind for another purpose. So this would be going on regardless of how my life is, good, bad, sad, whatever. It would still happen on the Sunday, as proven when I had my heart attack. So what you have to understand about that is then it's going to continue regardless. But I just have to say a big thank you to anybody that watches, and a huge one to those that have left comments. So we'll get to that. It's called the shout out section, and they are this week: Denny, Carl Todd, Ian Hill the Ramblings, Wee Bob Art, Martroid, Colin Jones, aka Ponder, Roberts Retro Gaming, Don't Sub Gaming. Always like that name, Don't Sub, because anytime you go into a chat room, it's gone, hello, Don't Sub. Don't sub. So many people, the first thing they say, and I don't do this, they say, oh, please hit that subscribe button. I don't beg. It's one of those things. And Sandra Clark, who's, talks and leaves a comment now and again. So we'll get to all of that shortly. But to all those, thank you very much. But to everybody that's left a comment, thank you so much. And the other thing I just want to say just before I start reading out the comments, this is probably moving a little bit fast. And the reason for that is I didn't sleep well last night. I got so far behind with the pain that was going on that I got into the chair and I fell asleep. And when I woke up, a big hour of where I would normally be recording this has been lost. So I've now got a small amount of time before care for my mother just denotes to me. If I fall into the trap of that happening, then basically this wouldn't get done very well. It would be night when you see everything going on. So that's why I'm moving quite quickly and why we're getting now to the comment section in just the 30-minute section, which is generally unheard of. These are in no particular order, and I'm just making sure that everything is expanded so I can see it all, because when people write a lot of comments, it contracts itself, and the only one that I had to expand upon is Denny. So it's going to be War and Peace when I get to him. But the very first one we've got is Carl Todd. And like I say, no particular order. And let's see what Carl's got to say. He's put, "Hi Del, I hope that your week was a good one and that your mum had a comfortable week today. She had a comfortable week all told." Thank you so much, Carl. "I went to see the doctor on Friday and everything is looking good. Just a lot of internal swelling. Absolutely marvellous." If anybody's wondering what's going on, Carl reminded us that he had an operation, and I said to him, please keep me informed. I consider him a friend, and I want to make sure that he's okay. And the good news there is I'm relieved. Things are going well. He says, "Gradually feeling better. I used to read a lot of magazines in the past, and even when I moved, I just to get some magazines." So even when he moved, he still bought magazines. Right, I understand. "But nowadays the postage costs are too expensive. I sometimes look at digital magazines using Zinio. Now I've never heard of Zinio. I'll tell you a little bit about that, and I understand where you're coming from. So some people that are reading this out to are not in my country. So he's probably moved about, and so magazines then drastically change. If I move to America, if I was still collecting UK comics, that would be horrendous, wouldn't it? But there would be an equivalent that I would buy, and I'd have to look into those things if that was important to me. Now, when it comes to digital comics, that came to me when I was part of a group called the Digital Comic Preservation Team, and this was 2005, and it's where I picked up all of my skills with Photoshop, using the arbitrary tool, using the curves tool to find the light point, dark point, and the mid-grey point to get the perfect colour balance for what I was preserving. Denny will know what I'm talking about. I've probably shut off half the audience, so I won't go much further. But then I heard about the fact that when I presented all of my preserved scanned pages, they bundled it up into what they call a CBZ file. And that was to use a particular type of reader, or the most common reader that you used for comics. Now, you could do this in PDFs, but I don't like PDFs. I have to say, PDFs are not for me. So this compression format, which was generally just zip and RAR renamed, meant that a reader needed to be used to go from page to page. And therefore, I understood what the readers were for comic books. Now, magazines, it seems that Zinio is the one to use. Now, We also looked about it in the digital comic preservation, that's DCP, at Kindles, because we thought Kindles would go from the paper white technology to a color system someday. And lo and behold, I think about a year and a half ago, they released their color version of the Kindle. And I think in the last 9 months, it's the Kindle color version with scribe technology, so you can use a pen. Now, I do know that there are, I think there's one called Remarkable that also have a color type Kindle device. That's something like 600 quid. And when I was looking at Kindles the other day, because they're in the news at the moment because Amazon have basically alienated all people with old Kindles, which I mentioned in another blog, have changed the lineup and pricing of it. And their most expensive Kindle now is pretty much in line with that one, that Remarkable that I talked about. It's a company called Remarkable. Paperlite, I think, or something it's called. They use a different type of technology. Now, they have got not what they call color chrome technology. They use a technology where the pixels come to the fore, and it uses red, green, and blue, which means it doesn't have a black filament. So black is slightly grayer, but you get better color tone on the display. So if you want to read comics, you have to go for the non-Kindle type way of doing things. And yes, I know that people could just use a normal tablet and that sort of stuff. But if you've ever used a Kindle, you'll know what I mean when it comes to what text looks like and how black it looks against a white background. There's nothing quite like that paper white technology. It really is very good. So anyway, Zinio, that's interesting to know. So he continues some new questions for you. Do you have any thoughts about the cancellation of the Stargate TV show? Is it something you were looking forward to? Absolutely, I was looking forward to it. And the reasons for its cancellation makes me pretty much physically sick. Apparently, there was a charter that was made up when all of these ex-writers that used to make Stargate back in the day and came back, that they were going to be left to their own devices and write Stargate. And the only thing that was brought in by the higher-ups was try and modernize it for our modern audiences. And what seems to have happened in the last month, the higher-ups have come up and said, no, you can't do it like that. You've got to do it this way, which goes against the ethic of all of those years of Stargate. And they said, okay, then we can't continue. And it's so sad. So one of the things that I heard about was they wanted to change the dynamic of the military versus this alien threat, okay, and make it so they could work together and all of this sort of stuff, softening it. If you're a Marine and there is something where the world is against us and you're enlightened to know that there are other worlds that this is happening to, then you can't not have people that come in as army and going, I am here to put an end to this tyranny, so I'm going to use lethal force. You can't soften lethal force. In the show, they would come in, they would have their proper, earth weapons, and they would kill the aliens, right? They weren't bullets that put them to sleep. It killed them. So you've got to have that in it. You can't soften that. Apparently it's more complex than that. It's a lot more deeper than that, the changes that they wanted to make. And so it saddens me that the TV show's not coming along, and the heads of these studios that once said, we'll leave you to your own devices, come in at the last minute and go, oh no, we were expecting this. Bring in this and bring in that, which goes totally against what the show was. They wanted a continuation of where it sort of like leveled off. And so then a year of getting excitement thrown away. And a lot of people that were fans of the show that watch it on reruns even now, alienated and forget your dreams, it's not coming back. Can this be turned around again? I hope. If it doesn't happen, I'm glad it didn't happen, because I wouldn't want to see the show turn into something that the original creators that came back were being forced to pen. Thank God they've got enough money to just go, hey, happy with what we had. It was a nice idea, but I don't need your money, Amazon, Disney, whoever. So, yeah. I was very sad to hear that news. If you see me moving left and right, you'll know that I'm still in pain, so apologies. Number 2 you've come across with. Sometimes you mention the PS4. I wonder if you have jailbroken yours. Yeah, you can't see my PS4. I don't think it's right in that corner, that little light. It's just below there where my PS4 is. Have I jailbroken it? Do you know what? I haven't jailbroken a console of mine since the Xbox 360. I jailbroke my handhelds all the time. But again, I stopped at the 3DS. And the reason for that was I didn't need to jailbreak the 3DS because it had a cartridge, a gold cartridge. It was a gold brand. I can't quite remember what it's called. I was going to have a quick look and see if I could show you. Let's do that. Let me see if I can find it. It's in here, I believe. Yeah. The cartridge will still be in it, you see. Let's have a look. Talk amongst yourselves. Yeah, it's called the Sky 3DS. I don't know if you can see that, if I can get that in focus. Maybe best to change to overhead cam. Might be better. There we go. Which uses a little SD card and a rocker switch there and a little USB cable that goes into the size of this. And basically it enabled you to have like a cartridge with many games in it. Just trying to put it back in now into my 3DS. There we are. So it pops into there. And basically, I don't even know if I've got enough power. Let's have a look and see if I do, and make sure that wireless is off. See if it powers on. Don't know if it will. There we are. And you'll see at the top there, games, or there should be there. Wireless is disabled, so that's good. Don't know if the games are there actually. Let's have a look. I think you have to use the rocker switch. Not sure how it works now. Haven't done it. Oh, it's got a little message at the top there. Oh well, I was going to show you that, but it used to have all of the different cartridges there. Go home. Weird. I'm interested now. Maybe if I eject it and put it back in. Not quite sure why that's working now. I'll have to have a look at that after I've done this. Really weird. Anyway, It's like it's like having a cartridge which has 10 games on it or whatever, and therefore I didn't need to jailbreak it and copy them across actually into the device itself. So yeah, I've always lived with those, and they've been absolutely marvelous. So I've never needed to jailbreak my console. So even my PS3, which is just there, is not jailbroken. So yeah, that answers that question really. My question back to you is, how many consoles do you have, and how many have they been jailbroken? Maybe you've jailbroken every single one. Maybe you think it's silly that I haven't jailbroken mine. It is. I have to turn around and say, do you know what? They're out of guarantee. I really should do something like that. But I think the reason I never jailbroke them is in case I bricked them. To be quite honest, a handheld console less expensive to replace. So really, maybe I should go back and have a little look at doing that. Number 3, I know that you love comic book art, and you often mention your favourite artists. I wonder if there are any female artists that you like, since the majority of, not all of the ones you mentioned, are the legends who are all male. No agenda here. I'm just curious, since most of the well-known artists are male. Yeah, no, totally get it. Yes, I don't collect specifically by artists. There has been times in my life where I've considered that, because anybody that knows me knows I like John Romita. But John Romita had a son, John Romita Jr., and he followed in his steps, in the footsteps of his dad. But there were so many other artists I liked, like Gene Colan or John Buscema, Ross Andrew, they all came along, and I liked them really as well. It was just, I loved the work of Steve Ditko and all of those sort of ones, but you move your focal point to the what you like from an eye perspective, and John Romita was mine. But I'm one of those people that read up all about how Marvel came about, how Marvel started, how Marvel continued, what they continually kept referencing, which was the Marvel method. And so I heard about all of the people that were in what they call the Marvel bullpen. So in the very early days, there was a lady called Marie Severin. Now she was around. I think she died about 7 years ago. So she was around for quite some time, but obviously retired. But she was around in the 60s, right? And she was mostly inking the male-dominated artistry that was going around, because you've got to remember, in the 60s, yes, it wasn't a sexist place, as I would call a sexist place, but it was male-orientated in regards to the talent, should we say, as a word. So Marie was mostly inking, but she did do her own. Marvel did give her her own comics to do, and Marvel had a what they call a funny periodical called Brand Ek, and she used to do cartoonery of Marvel characters like Spider-Man and so forth, and they would be there'd be people like Superman and things like this. But she also inked all of the major works, and when some artists were moved onto other projects, she would fill in, and she did that on the Incredible Hulk. And I've got I think she did the Incredible Hulk annual #1, and her work is absolutely incredible, to the point where I really wanted to know what issues she did and buy those issues, because she could sort of like clone, instead of actually doing her own work, she would clone how that artist did their drawings. Later on, she would not do that. She would draw in her own style as a fill-in. But you can see her own sort of like artistry breaking through even when she was filling in. So Marie Severin was one that I knew worked very closely with John Romita when he became art director. She was always the clown of the Marvel bullpen. She made everybody smile, did caricatures and stuck them on their walls so that when they came in the morning or in the afternoon, there'd be something new for them to see on their desks, and that would be a joke or something. That type of person's wonderful, I think, in any office environment. But that was great. I've had to put my things down here. There is one called Ruth Atkinson. Now, just trying to think what Ruth Atkinson did, but I think if I remember rightly, Ruth Atkinson designed a female character for the Marvel Universe, wrote it and drew it. And it was a character called the Cat. And the Cat looks very much like a female version of the original sketches of Wolverine. Yellow and black costume type thing with sort of cat tails where Wolverine had the marks as if a Wolverine did as well. Black sort of like eyeline over the head on the headpiece. And drawn really, really well. You'd have thought that someone, I don't know, like Gene Colan would have drawn it, or Don Heck, specifically Don Heck, I would say. So that person came to my mind. And then what I was really impressed with is where in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, they had Ultimate Spider-Man, and that turned into a death of that character and then turned into Miles Morales. And there was someone called Sarah Pichelli, and she took over the reins of the artistry for Miles Morales' character, and the artistry in that was really, really good. I wasn't enamored by the story, but I was buying the Spider-Man title because it's Spider-Man. And so Miles Morales was there. And when I was looking at it, I was drawn by the artistry, the panels, what the strip was trying to portray as a storytelling tool. So, yeah, that was absolutely brilliant. Loved that person's work. There are probably a load more that I should be mentioning, but I was never that big on DC Image and all of that sort of stuff. That those ones that I've just mentioned come to mind because they're prevalent and ones that I know I've got in my collection. So I hope that's a good enough answer. Now you'll probably hear my throat's going a little bit, so I'm going to just take a little respite and I'll be back in just a moment. It won't be long because I know that I'm very tight for timelines today because of that problem that happened this morning. So just bear with me. And I'm back, and I've got some water. And I'll just show you that 3DS for a moment. Here we go. Should power on any minute. And there we are. You can see that I've got my cartridge in. Nothing's changed. There's a game, look, Angry Birds, and there's a little rocker switch, look, and if I press it, it disappears, and another game displays. There we are, look, 50 classic games. Press it again, disappears, and Spider-Man turns up. Press it again, disappears. And Luigi's Mansion comes up. And that's pretty much how it works. It's a really good thing. And it meant that I didn't need to jailbreak my system. So I just power it off. We go back to new camera. And I will just put this away and we will move on to the next person to speak to. and I'm pretty sure that it's a very, very good friend of mine, and one that's going to be like War and Peace. So I think you know who I'm going to be talking about. And lo and behold, I'm just looking, and it's Mr. War and Peace himself, Denny, who I'm so glad is writing again on here. And he's put, "Hiya, mate. I hope you and your mother have had a good week. Weather hasn't been brilliant, but it hasn't had an effect on my mood. Right then, 2 things to get off my chest for your diary this week." Thank you so much for calling it a diary. Even I keep forgetting. "Firstly, and with great regret, I've decided to put my YouTube channel, Retro Control Center, on hold indefinitely. I've had to be realistic and accept that I cannot run 2 channels at once without compromising the quality of all my videos. I had plans for the channel to be Zap magazine only videos with the restoration the magazines require, then including all the games from them and then putting them through my video producing software would take way too long to sustain in my current situation." Yes, if you haven't guessed already, Dennis had just as many problems as I've had in my life, and his, and I wish him totally well. It upsets me when I hear that his mother and his father are not in great health, and of course there are other things that go on in his life because he has a partner. It can be very difficult, and you may have seen on mine that I haven't done gaming or movie type videos because certain times you'd think you had a whole week to do it. You just can't get to it. It just literally is in sight of you, in your hand like this, and then as it gets closer and you go, right, I can do it, something else pushes it away, and it might as well be the distance from here to to Mars. Because that's life. So understood on that. So going forward, I'm planning to concentrate on restoring old video game cassettes and boxes and offering them to archives such as Moby Games and Launchbox game databases. My bit to offer something to the community, especially those for video productions. I also plan to do the same with the Zap magazine, though that will take a long time to do and will only be done when possible. Yeah, if you can ever imagine, if you're trying to restore something like I did, I used to scan 32 pages of comic art, and then you had to do the color restoration, the light and dark, the contrast, the saturation levels, also straighten it so that it's perfectly square, and then do that for every page. Zap magazine was like 100 odd pages per month. It takes a long time to do a page, so you can imagine restoring 100 odd pages. You're not going to do that in a day, are you? So if you come back to it and you do it at night, you might get a couple of pages done each night. It's going to take you a month or more. I would say more like 2 to do something like 100 odd pages. Depends on how quick your abilities are and how bad the condition of the comic is or the magazine. So I totally get it. Some of the comics that I was doing were from the 60s and I was scanning. They took me a lot longer than ones that were of this month or this year, with where you scan it and there's very little touch-up work that needs to be done. So you can imagine a magazine from the 80s, certainly like 1985 or even earlier, if you're talking your computer or computer video games, it's going to take ages. So you put that, saying all that, I plan to go full steam ahead with my other channel, Adventurer's Rest. Mark from 20th Century Gaming left some comments on my Adventureland video saying it was my niche, and I agree with him. I don't see many channels dedicated to text graphic adventures, and it's my main interest. One out of interest, do you think dungeon crawlers like Eye of the Beholder would be out of place in the channel? To be quite honest, I don't. I think that they would fit in quite well. I would definitely say more of the Scum Engine type games like Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, Beneath a Steel Sky, all of those would be better than Eye of the Beholder. But dungeon crawlers fit in quite well because you're telling a tale of you know, say, so take it like this: Bard's Tale, which is a tale of a band of people going on an adventure, is what adventuring is all about, isn't it? I wouldn't say something like Diablo, Fallout 1 and 2 fit into your adventurer's rest. If we're talking more about Scott Adams, say, and Infocom and all of that sort of stuff. But I think if you start going into where adventures branched out to, the Scum Engine stuff that I mentioned earlier definitely fall into that suit. King's Quest, all of that. And Eye of the Beholder wouldn't be out of too far of that realm either. It would be on the edge, though, if you see what I'm talking about, because there is very little text. I'll tell you what, Deja Vu, if you remember that adventure, which was more a Mac-based interface and more of a what you see on the screen and picking it up type thing, definitely fits into the Adventurer's Rest critique. So that's my opinion on that, being as you asked me. To be honest, most retro channels are retreading the same old ground time and time again. For example, top tens and such. I find there seems to be an air of apathy recently, especially the bigger providers. Yeah, I'm getting a bit sick, I have to say. You know, let's do a comparison of this. Let's do a top 10 of this. All of that sort of stuff. And the footage, or it's sometimes historic, or if a person is playing it, it's something that you've seen already. So it's nice, don't get me wrong, love those channels, but I'm starting to go, oh, not that one again. I've seen that. Skip, whatever. So I do get it. But again, this is down to your target audience. And that's where I'm saying, hey, those people that do that, nothing wrong with it. And thank you very much to all the YouTube creators that do their stuff. It's just a question or a remark is made here, and it makes you then turn around and talk about your own tastes. So there you go. And I have to say, staleness is just something that happens. It's an endless cycle, what we get. And so if something is stale, it's going to be new very, very shortly, and it will make you come back in droves. So there you are. So you continue. Even if it's a half hour, I can grab and do a little work on my latest production. I do, and I'm loving it. The second thing to get off my chest this week is something both of us share. Something very special to us both. That special thing is Guild Wars. Yes, this is where I was talking about the topics earlier. Guild Wars 3 was announced last Friday night. This time it takes place 1,000 years before Guild Wars 1, when Ore was still in one piece, and before the Searing. If you don't know Guild Wars, and I'm sorry if I've alienated, that's all to do with a place in Guild Wars and you know, the races and stuff that were in there. Pre-Searing was before something happened where the whole world changed, right? So it was a beautiful, idyllic landscape. I have to be honest, the trailer's graphical style wasn't my favourite. I much prefer the splendour of the original Guild Wars. But it's very, very early days to have any say on it just yet. And I have to agree with that. And I do know what engine they're using. They're using the Unreal Engine 5. And from what we could tell, the game is to come out possibly 2027, but I think it'll be more like 2028. To be quite honest. I understand it will be fully playable solo, going back to the days of Guild Wars 1 with soloable missions or playing with friends. Things I'd like to see back are the White Mantle, the Mersat, Etins, Lava Imp, Hydra, Stone Summit, and many locations from the original Guild Wars. Totally get that. So there's a couple of races and things and protagonists, you know, the enemy in there that was mentioned there. So a question for this week. What is your wish list and things you'd like to see and things you hope they don't include in Guild Wars 3? That's a very hard question, because anybody that knows me knows I love Guild Wars. I talk about it very fondly, but I haven't loaded it up in a long time, and my memories are now quite far back in the distance. What I will tell you is the one thing that Guild Wars 2 tried to do, and succeeded for many, but in my eyes didn't, was aid the solo player. What do I mean by that? It's a bit tricky, this. Guild Wars 2 enabled you to go out and explore. And as you explored, something would happen. So you headed towards a forest. And as you headed towards the forest, something would happen. An alert would come on. Oh, I'm being attacked. Please help me. You would, you'd go and help that. An event would occur. Some other people that are also playing in this world could come in and help. You know, it was an open world type thing, and it would take you, but you were heading probably to the forest to do a particular mission, because as in with all MMOs, you would want to follow the story. The story would give you your XP, and your XP would be the thing that made the quality of life in future attacks easier. So they made it more open world. The events then came in, and it was more like a fluid, natural world. Guild War 1 was more an on rails. You could have friends join in, just as Denny said, and it was marvelous for that. But you could also play solo, and it had this thing that they brought in later on called henchmen. And henchmen were things like hired sort of like people that would be part of your group. So instead of finding 6 friends to do something, you had a AI or a computer guided person that would be with you. So it wouldn't be just you against a horde. You could have henchmen. And in this henchman, you also had what they call heroes. And these heroes, you could actually give them your armor that you weren't wearing anymore. You know, if you'd picked up a magical piece of equipment, you could give it to your hero and he would be powered up. And therefore you could have an army that was with you, and they had the same abilities and armor that you wore, making the whole game a little bit easier. So when you did get to a big mission event like Guild Wars would have, where it would say you need to get to the northern wall, it enclosed itself in as an event that was just you, right? So the world would close in, you would be stuck in this little part of the map, which was this particular mission, and you would do it. And if you were by yourself, the amount of times you'd die would be just astronomical, right? And what you have to understand about Guild Wars is every time you died, there was a penalty. And this penalty could stack to where it was 60%. And that meant that your life was at 40% to do the whole mission again, unless you totally left that area and came back and it would all reset, right? So we have to understand it with these henchmen and then eventually heroes that would be part of your henchmen. You could do this as if you had friends, right? And that was brilliant for me, because most of the people that I befriended in Guild Wars were in other countries, and the guild that I joined, they'd done the mission already, or they didn't really want to continue. that's all down to them, and that's fine. But then how do you do it? You're stuck. You need to progress. You can't do it by yourself. You kept falling over and dying and all of that sort of stuff. You couldn't find a way to do it. And therefore, you had to move on and do other things until somebody would come along eventually and help you. That was taken away in Guild Wars 2, and I'd like to see it back. And that's me being selfish, because I want to be able to have an army that I can control and be with me and make things a little bit easier. Yes, I want to see all of the old areas again. That would be great in that engine. But I'd also like to see the ones I saw in Guild Wars 2, because they were stunningly beautiful, and I can just imagine in the Unreal 5 engine just how much more beauty and effects could be added to it. So it doesn't take away any of that sort of stuff. Yes, I want to see the old enemies. The one thing that you got from Guild Wars is there's going to be a higher nostalgia. And I remember the reason why I bought Guild Wars in the first place. I was dead against monthly subscriptions. I wanted to be able to pay for something, install it, and that would be it. That's me playing in that world indefinitely. And the nice thing about it was they never closed the servers down. And what happened was, a couple of years ago, a person that was on the Guild Wars 2 team in his own time, remember this is his own time, he's supposed to go home, went back to the Guild Wars 1 servers and kept it going. Anything that would make, if it had crashed, it'd sort out the crash, bring it back up, and he brought back some quality of life things. Until they saw, the Guild Wars 2 team saw the numbers were starting to grow again in their old servers, and they decided to bring in a team to work on it. And then it turned into something called, just recently, Guild Wars Reforged. And anybody who had still the original installation discs and was still playing, it was free. And anybody that never played it in their life, and their first incarnation was Guild Wars 2, could buy it at a very, very cheap rate. In other words, it had two of the expansions, which were Factions, I think, and Nightfall. Got it for like £14, where it cost me 50 quid an expansion when I first bought it. So that was 150 quid down to £14. But it is an older game. No new engine, nothing. Now, Denny and I have already talked about this, but in that one of those expansions, which was Eye of the North, there was something called the Monument System, or the Monument Place. And all of your achievements were on a wall, like a trophy type system, and it carried forward into Guild Wars 2. Oh my God, do I want that happening in Guild Wars 2 to go into Guild Wars 3? Yes, please. That was a fantastic idea. Okay, your money didn't transfer, your armor didn't really transfer, but you had all of your achievements and all that sort of stuff, how much land you covered, how many missions you, all going across, and it gave you a buff, what I call a buff. And yes, I want that in there. So there's a couple of things, Denny. I could probably go on more, but yes, very, very exciting. I'll talk a little bit more about where that announcement came from in the later stages. But yes, really looking forward to that. As always, you've put pass on my best to your mother, and you know I will. And thank you so much. Absolutely brilliant. Denny, whatever you're doing, I'm full support of it. If you need any help, let me know. And we move on to another one of my great friends, Ian Hill, The Ramblings. And you know I've spoken about Ian. And he had a celebration this week. But we'll talk about that after we read the comments. But Ian Hill, The Ramblings, and many of these people that I'm talking about now, they're in my description. Please click on the links. Go and support them as they're great creators. And I'm sure there's something there that you're really going to love. And Ian and I collaborate every week on a live stream, and he's helped me out getting through a very, very difficult period these last nearly 18 months now. So God bless him as far as I'm concerned. and go and have a little look at his channel. So he's put this week, "Hi Del Boy, I hope you and your mum are doing okay and your week has been average with no big problems." Now he's used that word specifically, average. That's what I aim for. I can't aim for greatness. I can't aim for, nobody aims for disaster. Average is the new norm, and I made that as a statement. So he continues, "Also, your body is healing, although it's a slow process." Yeah. So he was hoping that my week is average with no big problems and that my body is healing, although he knows it will be a slow process. I would say it is a slow process. I wouldn't say it's getting worse. So I'm optimistic. "We had another great live stream on Wednesday," he continues. "My week has been good. My health has been fine and the healing continues. I also had a great birthday. I was 66. Thank you for your gift. I'll be watching it soon. I did get quite a few films over the last month, which I will enjoy watching." This is where I understand totally where he's coming from. Ian has had a lot of losses in his life. He's got some great positives, but he's had a lot of losses. Anybody that knows him knows about his wife and how she died. Anybody knows about him knows about his dad and how much he misses his dad. We have similarities. I didn't have a wife that died, but the condition that my mother is in is very similar to his wife, and nobody would want to go or wish upon what happened to him and his wife. Go and look at his channel for information on this. You will find it in his videos at in some place. So we share a sort of like a bond, and he's just celebrated his 66th birthday, which means he's now considered in this country a pensioner, an old age pensioner, an OAP. So he gets a bus pass, he gets a pension, no things from benefits in regards to you need to start working again, etc., etc. And this is what we all aim for, the end of our working life and enjoyment in our retirement years. So it's a big event. And for me, being, 10 or so years younger means that that's still quite a leap for me to get to. But many people in their early stages of working go, "I'm going to retire early." He's reached that age. And I made a joke about it because he looks like Captain Birdseye to me. So I used to say, when you do finally retire, I'm intrigued to know who's going to replace you as the figurehead of Birdseye, right? And I do also state to him that he looks like Father Christmas, which he's already told me that's a part-time job. So I'm not giving that up, which makes me laugh. But there you go. These are just things that we talk about between ourselves. When it comes to the gift, my pleasure. It was something that was simple, cheap, deserving to him, something that would fit in his collection. Every time he now goes to his shelf, he knows who bought that for him. I will hopefully come into his mind when he's watching it. And I've done that to a number of people. I don't buy friendships. I hope that I've passed on something that would make them smile when they took it off their shelf and go, "Oh, I remember who gave me that. Oh yeah, all the chats that we used to have, all of the times we used to have our conversations." That's what that was all about. Anybody that wants to manipulate that memory, go ahead and try, but that's what it was all about. And I therefore have no qualms in my life that I hope that, people see that I'm not buying friends. I do it because I want to be remembered as a nice person, right? Because I am, and I want to do it because I want to bring a smile on a special occasion. So there you go. That's what it's like. When he tries to dirty that I just have no no time for it really. You know what I mean? Um, so you put, thank you for your gift. I'll be watching it soon. I did get quite a few films over the last month, which I will enjoy watching. So what's happened is he's bought his own presents. We've all done that, I think. As your friend base shrinks, the less you get cards and all that sort of stuff, and the more you go out and get your own thing for your own celebration of your own event. In this case, a birthday. It can happen at Christmas, Valentine's, all that sort of stuff. That happens to me all the time. I have to buy my own Christmas present for myself. I have to buy my own birthday present. It's just as simple as that. So he continues. Also, The Twilight Zone Season 1 on Blu-ray for £7 from Music Magpie and looks in near mint condition. I did well because it's out of print now and expensive. I'm also enjoying watching Spider-Man Noir with Nicolas Cage in the leading role. It suits it well in black and white and looks great. I've also loved watching the original Planet of the Apes box set. Full stop, and I'll stop here because there's a lot to take in there. So some of the stuff he's bought is The Twilight Zone. Thumbs up. Love The Twilight Zone. I know that he had Season 2. He's now got Season 1. These are in Blu-ray format. So he's now got 2 of that particular groundbreaking season. Spider-Man Noir is a new show that's on telly at the moment. I think it's Amazon Prime. I've been watching that. I'm up to episode 6 because they're 45 minutes long. It is an absolute wonderful show. I thought it was going to be atrocious. I was thinking to myself how Marvel could destroy another character, and this time it's Spider-Man. You'll see that in the Marvel Universe, they have not done a Spider-Man show as a TV program since 1977 with Nicholas Hammond. The very first Spider-Man show that's therefore live action as a TV show just happens to be Spider-Man Noir, which is Spider-Man set in the Prohibition era of America. So the 30s, 20s, 30s, that sort of thing. So Spider-Man is not going to be technically heavy with things like web shooters and stuff, although that's going to be a part of it. And of course he can cling to wall and he has a spider sense, etc., etc. And it's also set in another universe. So of course it's a different type of character. I watched it, brilliant. Loved it. So many homages to Humphrey Bogart. You know, there's homages to the Maltese Falcon in it and all that sort of stuff. It is brilliant. It really looks like a old crime drama from those eras. Brilliant. I'm loving it. Glad he is as well. Marvellous. And Planet of the Apes, well, on Wednesday last week, I couldn't stop talking. I felt so apologetic at the end. Because Planet of the Apes obviously is my niche. It's like me talking about Star Trek or Doctor Who or anything else. Planet of the Apes is one of my favourite films. The very first film had Rod Serling, who made The Twilight Zone, heavily influencing what went on in the script of that film. It's marvellous. So, of course, I had an input and we talked at length. He was talking at length and I butted in and talked about other little things that people might not be aware of. So we had a great time anyway. He continues, I still think Escape from the Planet of the Apes is my favourite after the first one. Yeah, I think a lot of people might agree with you there. I think a lot of people that watch the box set either watch the first one and end, watch the first one and the third one and end, or watch the lot. I've watched the lot, I have to say. And when they start reminiscing or have a nostalgic bent towards talking about the Planet of the Apes, they go at length about the first one, they go at length about the third one, and then they talk very shallowly, I think, about the second, fourth and fifth. And those stories in there were great, but the heads of 20th Century Fox that was making the films kept taking the budget away. I think halving the budget each time. So, of course, the quality goes down in the visuals, The story, I still think, remains high in the most part. But with so many different directors and producers, by the time it got to the fifth film, I think it had run its course. And I definitely would have done the fifth film differently. I didn't agree with the apes being in trees. I thought they would have had an ape city. Definitely a segregation in the fact that the humans wouldn't live in the trees. So there's a segregation there. And all sorts of other things that when I think back at it, I go, yeah, I'd have done it differently. But, you know, it's great that he watched Planet of the Apes and he watched all 5. Brilliant. Obviously, retirement is suiting him very well. An escape, yeah, totally understand it. So my question this week is, what are your favourite box sets? Oh, now that's going to be a very difficult one because there are so many box sets. And some of them are done really, really well. Some of them are done pretty poorly. Now, some of my favourites are the pretty obvious ones. Back to the Future. Yep. Lord of the Rings. Yep. Game of Thrones I've got as a box set. Yep. My Star Trek The Motion Picture is a collaboration in a box set of itself instead of just being all 10 Star Trek films. As much as I love my Star Trek 10 box set that I've got, and I've even got the 2 separates, the original and the Next Generation, in separate box sets as well, and those are gorgeous. Star Trek The Motion Picture with the different cuts of the film with extras and booklet and all of that sort of stuff is a gorgeous box set, and the artistry and the artwork on it is fantastic. I've got many Spider-Man box sets. I've got them as individuals, as complex, comprehensive, one film type deals like I've just talked about with the motion picture, and I've got them as digibooks where it's the Raimi series and the Garfield series and the, you know, etc, etc, and each one I've a great, you know, some of them are like leather bound books, and I've got so many collectors. I mean, I remember my Robin Hood Ridley Scott collection, which is like a leather bound book, and when you open it you've got the discs, but it's also got a little pouch, a little leather pouch in there with I forgot what's in there, dice I think, to portray that gambling was going on in that particular medieval setting, and it's got art cards and a hardback book and the artistry of that particular film and all sorts of stuff. It's just brilliant. I mean, I've got a 007 Sean Connery box set, which is great, a Transformers box set, which is great. Just goes on and on and on. Some of the box sets that I really hate are as if you have a steelbook set wrapped around almost like a paper cut or very thin cardboard outer. They just rip because metal is heavy, paper is light. The stress that goes on those corners, ridiculous. So they rip. What's the point of them? They look battered on your shelf. They look bloody awful. When I see those being sold, they're instantly a pass by me, or if I've accidentally ordered it, they go back to where I bought them from as a no thank you, sorry, made a mistake, right? Just don't want them. So I've made a few there. Planet of the Apes I obviously have a box set of, and you know, I look forward to future box sets of Planet of the Apes. I would love 20th Century Fox, or Disney as it is now, to restore those from the original negatives, bring them out as a steel book with a steel enclosed outer set. Would love it. Not an upscale, not a Blu-ray upscale, the proper restoration work, please. And I think that there's an audience out there. So you end all the best to you and your mum and have a really grand time. And thank you so much. I obviously will. Brilliant of you. Thank you. So we'll move on, and I might just then take a little bit of a break, I must admit. My throat's going again. Salute to Ian, and please go and look at his channel. We move on to an equally great person and YouTube creator, and that is Wee Bob Art. And he's put, I did a quick calculation, and although not going to be accurate, it would appear that if I take all of your blogs, which I have watched, it comes to a total of 446 hours of content. My God, is it really? This turns out to be 18.5 days of my life listening to your videos. This does not account for all the times I have listened twice or watched the live stream for Ian Hill. Anyway, great to listen along, and perhaps I will make that community question that you mentioned. Oh, I mentioned, yeah. Do you know what? There are things that I lambast about a little bit, probably a bit too much. There is always a jealous streak, I think, in everybody, and one of those jealous streaks is when somebody's got your attention, you listen, and if they mention something that you could purchase or something that you could play, they go, oh, that's a bloody good idea. I'll remember that. And when they do their own channel, they then say, oh, I saw on Dell play this. I thought I'll have a play and do that. Or during a stream with Ian, Dell happened to mention this movie. I haven't got that in my collection, and it sounded bloody interesting. So I went out and bought it. Or something like that. And I see all the time friends and other channels go, oh, I looked at this, and because of that I bought this. And there are very few occasions where, you're mentioned, you're from my personal point of view. So it makes it think that all my selections are shit. Excuse my French. I've kept the swearing down, hopefully, and I always try to do that in this blog. But that's how sometimes I have felt, and so that's why it goes in this diary. I know it's not like that in the real world. A diary talks about your feelings from a retrospective point of view, and there are times where I have felt like that, and that I felt I know this week. Yeah. During, like Ian Hill's stream, I'll notice that he'll mention something, and then I've gone and watched somebody else's video and they've gone, oh, somebody mentioned this and I bought it. And I'm rarely mentioned. So I just think to myself, I'm not as good as I think I am, or what I'm talking about just isn't very good. But it could be also they've got it already. But I do bring out some very obscure titles. Find it very strange that somebody would have everything I mention. So, yeah, sometimes I feel that way. It's just a passing feeling. It's not something to really get het up about. But I mention it because this is a diary. And I'm mentioning it because at a certain point this week I did feel that way. So I've brought it into my diary, and here it is. Thanks for showing off a few of your hats, you said. And I did like the fedora, if that is what it's called. I don't even know what it's called, but fedora sounds about right. Question. Based on my first statement, what is one activity outside YouTube that you think you have spent 500 or more hours doing that has been a positive influence on your life? Oh, two come to mind straight away. I don't even have to think about it. Gardening. When my dad died and my mum was obviously not green-fingered and I was much younger, it was my responsibility to mow the lawn and keep the garden going. And I had an uphill struggle because I only watched my dad do the gardening and I never really asked questions about it. So, gardening is what I've spent more than 500 hours doing. And it's been a very positive influence on my life. I now know a lot more about perennials and spring flowers and winter flowers and what type of soil you need and what things are killing the flowers, like lime scale and all of that sort of stuff, pH numbers for soil and all sorts of stuff, which, has been a great joy, because you put a plant or a seed and you watch it grow. And then suddenly in the spring or summer, you've got a bed of this wonderful amount of colour and you go, I grew that. Well, no, Mother Nature grew it, but I gave it that spark, that little helping hand. When I was saving up to buy my new car, I told my dad I'm going to do some walking and I'm going to get my weight down and I'm going to buy the Audi that I always wanted. And my dad died a year after I got my car, but I started walking. I bought myself an incentive, a watch, watched my steps. And when my dad died, for 3 years straight, I walked every day regardless of what day it was and what the weather conditions were. Now, there were problems, sometimes the winds were gales. Sometimes the conditions were so cold it was black ice. And I had to go through those conditions, even if it was a small walk, walking in 4 or 5 inches of snow when you haven't got wellies, Wellington boots. All of that, I still did it. And so obviously I did more than 500 hours. And I look back at those and I've got them all recorded from my Garmin. This is a Phoenix, by the way. And I looked at my achievements. Every time I walked on a Valentine's Day, it says, you've got the Valentine's bag because you've walked on the 14th of February 5 times, which means that for 5 years I've walked on that day or whatever. Do you see what I mean? It's those, and those badges can be some sort of like an achievement. Those achievements can turn into, I'll do the same next year. So I've walked on Christmas Day, I've walked on bank holidays, I've walked on New Year's Day, I've walked on my birthday, I've walked on, you know what I mean? And I've got no end of these things. And I've also got, you've walked 10,000 steps for the first time, 20,000 steps for the first time, 30,000 steps for the first time, etc., etc. And it makes you go, oh, do you know what? I'll do 35,000 next time. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's kept me positive and it's made me think differently. I can go out and clear my mind and come back and go, the world isn't that bad. Forget it. That was this morning. And walking. What a fantastic tonic walking is. And it's why it hurts so much where I'm at. Remember, I was going to talk a little bit about my health as I go through these topics. So for the first time this week, since my mum fell on me and I've hurt myself, I've walked over a mile on one day, which has got to be a good step. Okay, it's under a lot of influences by medication, in particular cocodamol and gabapentin. But I've done it, and it means that I can now go, right, 1.5 miles next, and so forth and so forth. And I'll be getting the advice from the physio doctor that I see on Tuesday. So that's the next time I see the doctor, and the week before I go back to work. So you can imagine things are going on track. But things are not totally on track for some of the other health issues that I've got, that some people have guessed what that is. I'm not in the mood to talk about that at the moment. It's life-changing. It's something that if I don't get under control can kill you. So, for another time. I'm not there yet. Hopefully I look like I'm in good health. We will see. So I hope that's a good answer for you, wee Bob. And it's got. Anyway, I hope you have a good week. and all the best to you and your family. Let me think about this for a minute. So I've talked about walking, talked about gardening. I put in the past, more than 500 hours that were a positive influence into playing squash. Love that. And it was positive. It kept me honed, on point, focused. I won't mention golf, but I've done more than 500 of that. And back in the day, I did jogging. And jogging really kept me sharp. Every time I ran, I counted the posts that I was walking past. And you will have to excuse me for a moment because I've just had a knock at the door. Don't know if you heard that. And I'll be back shortly. Won't be a moment. And sorry about that, but it was a false alarm. But it did give me the ability to be able to go and have a little chat with my sister, which I love to do, and find out about my mum. So that was wonderful. It's getting kind of late, so I've got to sort of like quicken up. But we were talking about the 500 or more hours, and I think I've given quite a few there. So I'm going to end it with what he says, which is, anyway, I hope you have had a good week and all the best to you and your family. Same to you, Bob. I know that you didn't do anything this week on your channel, but I know that it's your week where you've had a holiday, and it's nice that you took time to look at what I did as my diary. And I hope that whatever you did, and I know that decorating was something that might be part of that, you got done and you had some time to rest as well. It's always important to have time with family. So my wish to you, I look forward to another zombie video, but also maybe an expansion on that community question. I think community questions are brilliant. I'd love to be involved in them. It's very difficult for me at the moment to do a video. I'd certainly mention them in my blog if there was a thought about them. There was one this week about 10 heartfelt films. If I'd have had the time, I'd have done that. I wasn't asked to do one, so I didn't do it. But I had my own stuff there, and it was great. And I will say a big thank you now to Ian Hill, The Ramblings. He chose a film that I recommended to him. So remember, that jealousy streak is not always true. I mentioned something to him. He bought it, loved it, and he's put it in his 10 heartfelt, and that was A Simple Twist of Fate with Steve Martin, which I think many people should, if they've never seen it, watch that film. It's an absolute brilliant heartfelt film. Don't be put off that it's got Steve Martin in it. If you don't like Steve Martin, it's absolutely just a brilliant film that you just go away feeling really good. There are some heartfelt films, though, are not always good, but they are brilliant. Greyfriars Bobby, I remember watching, which, if anybody knows, is about a dog and his owner at the beginning, and the owner dies, buried in the Greyfriars graveyard. The dog was called, I believe, Bobby, and that dog apparently guarded that grave for 14 years. In other words, the rest of its life. It slept on the grave, and there is a statue of that dog near that graveyard site. It's a heartfelt story, but it's a sad one, isn't it? So sometimes you'd think that isn't a heartfelt story at all. That's really, really sad. Another film I could mention is Tuesdays with Morrie. One that I think everybody should have in their collection, but it's out of print, so very difficult, but you can see it on certain platforms, digital ways of seeing it. So there are ways of seeing it, and you could, have a think and go, oh, might have a little look at that. So there you are. There's two that I would have put in my probably 10 heartfelt stories. Amazing Mr. Blunden would always be in there. But anyway, we move on. Salute to wee Bob, and we move to Colin Jones, aka Ponder, my technical buddy, my friend, who I'd love to meet, and I hope that'll happen very, very soon. We've done a couple of live things together in the past, but it's not the same as Meetup, so we'll never know, but hopefully that'll happen. And he starts off with, the heat we've had in the late spring is far from normal and most people have trouble with it. I don't though, because I'm weird. No, totally get that. So glad to hear that things are becoming an easier to handle routine. Let's hope this continues. As for the Mr., sometimes cheap and cheerful, does the job. Sending my regards to your mum as always. He continues, my issue with AI imagery is and will always be the same. It's trained on the work of real creators without their permission and in many cases be pure IP theft. It's the same with AI music. A 15-year-old can get fined millions for sharing a song, yet these companies get away with it with impunity. It's wrong on so many levels. By the way, AI slop is low quality, low effort content designed to make a profit. If you use it for personal use, then I'm not going to judge, but I don't want to see it for the above reasons. Yeah, and I'm sort of like in a similar vein. I mentioned about if I did a image of John Romita that I wanted in 16:9 format. The owner is dead. The image is in the center. I've expanded it for my own use. All the time you will see in every single creator video that I've done, all artistry remains the copyright and content of the original creator, and I totally uphold that. I use AI very, very rarely. I'll tell you what I use it for. Finding the news out for this blog, whatever anybody wants to know, I'll type into Google, what's the top news stories? And sometimes if it doesn't come up with anything and I can't go to a place that says, like The Guardian, that says you have to enable cookies, otherwise you have to pay 15 quid or something a month for it, I will go to AI and say, what's the top news stories? And it'll come up, and I still keep that copyright in my blog. I rarely use it for thumbnails. There have been occasions where I've wanted to take out a sign or something and do my own background, which I do with clip art, and then plonk that on the top. It's something that's taken AI minutes to do. Take this out of this picture, make it into a solid logo, plonk it in. But it's rare that I do that. Otherwise, it's clip art that I use. I use a lot of clip art and a lot of Photoshop. Other than that, even some of the stuff where I've put an image and said it's 4K and it's a disc and it's whatever, I've used the original logos. Or I've taken a Blu-ray image and turned it black and said that's a 4K. See, like that. So that remains with the copyright of the original owner, clip art. Clip art is actually listed on my discs as being free to use. So yeah, I recognise that some of my friends use AI to do certain stuff, and I've got no problem with it. They'll do things like, I need a cassette image or whatever it is, a piece of artistry, and I need to expand the cave to the right or whatever. No problem with it, especially as they're doing it for personal use. So, but AI just keeps getting talked about in this diary, and each time I seem like I'm trying to defend it. I'm not. What I'm doing is staying on the line of what it is for me. So there we go. Written mail obsolescence is a long way off, in my opinion. There's still far too much use for official paper mail for this to ever be a consideration. Email just can't replace this, and I agree with that. We were talking, I think, and I mentioned the letterbox might be in 10 years' time obsolete. I still feel that might be the case, but I do agree with what's being said there. Email just can't replace certain stuff. But hey, is email the only way to get a message across? And you have to think to yourself, 10 years time, what we've done in 10 years, where the Royal Mail is at the moment, it's easy target to actually say might not be around. I could be wrong, and I probably am. And if I am, good. Oh, I've seen the 1984 June, just not the new one. Totally get that as well. Like I say, I've seen both. I've been lucky. I've seen the two new ones and the old one. When it comes to the 1984 June, there is a 3-hour version. I know I've seen a longer version, and I've seen a really nearly 3-hour long one. I don't know though if that's the one that they talk about when they say the cut in the documentaries that I've done seen about June. All I know is I've seen quite a few versions. I haven't owned that 3-hour one. I saw that on TV years back. And I'd love to see it again. Anyway, you carry on. I've actually been on the HMS Victory, a full tour at Portsmouth. Wow, that must have been impressive. My favourite warship is the HMS Ark Royal. That was built in 1950. Yeah, that was a good question, that. I really enjoyed that, actually. The only way Big Track betrayed me, I'll remember me talking about toys and Big Track, betrayed me was by one of the axles breaking. It could never be fixed after that. I would have used it a lot longer had it not broken. It was one of my favourite childhood toys ever. I remember opening that thing up. I had the trailer. I used it a lot. It was a video, a YouTube video that brought up Big Track. And he was talking about how as a kiddie you were betrayed because of how simple it looked in the advert. I sort of semi-agreed, but I tell you what, I had fun with it. Loved it. What else have you put here? A video on an OST. Why the hell not? No, don't understand why not either, really. The reasons for no YouTube content from me last week was down to the fact my stream was a VIC-20 request stream. I don't put those on YouTube, so you're talking about your Twitch stream, yeah. And I haven't had the time for anything else. There should have been a video out yesterday, Saturday, from my C64 Dino Egg stream. And there was, and I saw it. Thank you very much. It's a shame that the VIC-20 one didn't get ported over to YouTube. As you know, I don't use Twitch. And I'd have loved to have seen that VIC-20 being one of my favourite computers ever. Missed out on it. You're making me feel like I'm FOMO on Twitch. Maybe I should reconsider my choice. I will think and dwell upon that. How's that? Following on with my lack of imagination in questions. You haven't got a lack of imaginations at all. Do you remember that little talk I turned around and said, do you know what? People that turn around and say, I can't think of a question. There are millions out there. You could turn around and say, what? When you have a rice pudding, do you have it with caster sugar or whatever it is? I don't care. They're questions. How do you iron your clothes still now that your dad's dead and your mum's immobilized? You know, all sorts of stuff. None of them are a lack of imagination. You've got to bloody think of them and then write them down. The lack of imagination is you don't get one. But anyway, following on from the lack of imagination in questions, I'm going to ask you personally a question that was asked on Twitter. If you could have any piece of furniture that could be transformed into a piece of usable tech, what would this be? Do you know what? Seen so many films where a wall or a table turns into a touch device for information. And I've always thought if I could have an automated home, that would be one of the things that would be a must. And I'm a big film watcher. So I'd probably turn an armchair into a surround system, an Atmos system. if you could get Atmos miniaturized to a system that was built into your armchair, I'd do that. And because I watch TV at night with a TV with me in my bed just over there, I'd love one of those beds where the screen comes up, but I'd change that to a projector. Love a projector at the bottom of, screen personally at the bottom of my bed with that same surround thing. Probably not the surround so much, because in my bed I want it to so that it gets me to sleep. But so a bed into something, a chair into something, a wall or a table into something. Tech-wise, I've mentioned all of this tech is available. All of that has been done already. So it's nothing new. I don't think I can think of anything new, in such a short space of time. But I hope that's given you some thing to think about. Salute, my friend, and it must be nearly time for blog. So I need to go back to your blog and see if I can think of something. If I haven't, I do apologise. Salute, my friend. Please go and look at his channel. He's got 2 of them. Brilliant. One of them is at least mentioned in my description. Moving on to my friend Martroyd, who's put, it was lovely to hear that your garden is flourishing, Del, and that your mum enjoyed your short so much. It's these simple, heartfelt moments that remind us what really matters. Cheers, bud. And thank you so much. I put that up because I've never done a short before, and my mum loved it. I've shown it to her 4 or 5 times. She's loved it. She said, aren't those beautiful, she says. And it just so tugs at your heart. Thank you, and salute, my friend. Brilliant. Moving on to Don't Sub Gaming, who I speak to on 20th Century Gaming's channel. Brilliant. He's put, hello, Delboy, I found your channel. I've been listening to this blog on and off all day. And apart from wishing you and your mum all the best, I have one thing I feel is important to say. And it is this. Oh, here we go. Sounds ominous. If you do your streams based off what other people do theirs, then you might as well hang up your headset now. You need to stream when you want to, not based off other people. And that's very important in my opinion. I don't stream, but my brother does and has thousands of subs, but he don't play games. Please mention who that channel is. I'd be very interested, Don't Sub, to know who that is and have a little look. I love looking at new channels and that people mention to me. Not enough people do that. In regards to your answer, I totally get it. I totally get it. It's just one of those things where I am a little, nano fish, right? In a pool filled with all my friends and people that have got far bigger subs. And the people that I like, I want to watch, so I don't want to stream when they are because I want to watch them. Yeah. And the biggest problem is that I should post something that says I'm doing a stream and I'm doing it on this night, and I don't. And the reason for that, lack of confidence. Okay, lack of confidence is a big thing in my life, and confidence is something that is growing in me all the time. And the more people that say I would watch your stream, then the more I'm going to do it. Do you see what I mean? It's just I have that inability to think that I don't matter and that my friends do. Ian's got that strength. Do you know what I mean? He goes, right, every Wednesday doing this. Sod whoever's doing it on that day, I'm doing it. And now it's an established thing. It may not have high numbers, but people know that's a place to go at that time. Right now, I can't even guarantee that, right? If I was to try and do something like every Thursday, say, And I'd look and see my friends aren't there, and I'd go, right, there you go. I would know something would happen to my mum and it would stop me. Do you see what I mean? But that's not always going to be my life. And so I will be able to do that something. I looked forward every Sunday to going to a live stream of Mainmeister, and hopefully he continues that. He did tell me the trappings. There will be days on a Sunday where he didn't want to do it, but he was so established he felt he had to. And that's a downfall of doing something on a specific day. And it's where something where you go, where it's not fun, you stop doing it. But if you've been doing it for 10 years, it's like, how do I stop this? And so I get it. But if I was up against one of my friends and they had 1,000 subs and I've got 200 or 300, I know people are going to go to that and not me. What's the point? See it in a rerun? It's live, for God's sake. It's supposed to be where you interact. Say, I might turn around and go, right, people that are watching, what would you like to see me play? In a rerun? Or you can put his damn, wish I was there, wasn't, couldn't ask you, what you played wasn't interesting, I'm off. And so, yeah, so many things. But the lack of confidence is going. The more I think about it, I do want to do it. And I'm starting to think, yeah, do it when you want. I am starting to go down that line. There you go. So, influencing me you have. Don't sub. Thank you so much. And I agree with you. Many, many points that you mentioned there. Absolutely spot on, to the point, and under my consideration. And hopefully my confidence will grow. Thank you very much for your understanding. And thank you very much for finding my channel. Little thing it is. Anyway, salute to you. Hope your brother's channel continues to grow and grow. And we move on to Robert's Retro Gaming, and he's put, Dell, he's royalty, by the way, from Canada, and a great friend of mine. Dell, are you a little bit under the weather? Your blog is less than 2 hours long. I have to say, that's a bit worrying. No, it's my mum and all that sort of stuff. I have to think about that. This one's going on longer. I'm glad to hear that things seem to be stable with your mum. I also miss the days of magazines. To some extent, of course, we do not have the endless information available to us back then that we do now. And there was something nice about buying a magazine and learning about new things or reading about games that you may or may not ever get. It's safe to say that for me, YouTube has taken on much of that role. I do still read a couple of magazines, but not cover to cover like I used to. Snap, snap, snap. Totally agree with you. And instead of YouTube, I'd put internet, because Wikipedia and all sorts of things have taken that away from me. I miss the days of PC Zone. I know it's there. I think that magazine, no, it died and came back, or a version of it. You can get a PC magazine these days, but it's not the same. I buy it on occasion, but money is tight. It's much easier on the internet. I'm guilty of that. I did buy the Zap re-emergence for a good year and put it into my binder, and I thought to myself, I could continue with this, but I stopped. Money, that's all that one was. And I hope that magazine continues. Don't get me wrong, I think magazines play an important role, and I'd like them to continue. You continue though. I think the hats look all right on you. Really? I thought they looked bloody awful. But that's again the lack of confidence, thinking people that see me with a hat probably think, what's that nonce doing with that hat on? I think hats look all right on you. I'm going to have to figure out something that works for me, as I don't have much hair on my top anymore. You look great as you are. I think the beard suits you, really do. Caps probably wouldn't suit you, but maybe I wouldn't say a cowboy hat. A flat cap, I think, would suit you well. Suited my dad. Not that you're my dad, but what I'm saying is, certain people can get away with a Yorkshire flat cap. And if we ever meet, I think that would probably be the present I'd give you, matey. Take it like that. I do think of those things, and I'll remember them. So maybe that'll happen one day. Don't know. There was something else that you talked about that I meant to say something about, but I was listening while driving, and the thought has long gone. It's nice that you put a line like that in. Throwaway line. Love it. I love throwaway lines. All the best to you and your mum. Thank you, and you know I'm going to pass that on. Salute, my friend. If you haven't guessed already, he's got a YouTube channel. Go now. Subscribe. Look. Brilliant. Last comment, I think, and it's from Sandra Clark. Love Sandra Clark. She comments every now and again, usually when it's something important. So let's see what's mentioned here. Hello, Dell. 2 minor things for a laugh. Remember, this is for a laugh. Don't think of it as serious. Have you noticed the blog is getting later and later now? It used to drop about 4:30 on a Sunday, but that's rocketed up to 5, 6, 7, and now past 8 o'clock. Yes, and the reason for that is my mum. Just like this one, I'll probably finish just around about the time my sister has to go. Then I've only got 20-minute sessions where I can come back and do the picture, you know, the camera picture, then the text that goes on the top of that, then the posting the video up to YouTube, then copying the picture across, then the write-up, which is mostly a copy and paste, but it still needs to be done, and then the release of it. It has to be done on a Sunday. It's in the charter that it was every Sunday. On a Monday, it'd be the next week. Remember, this is an end of week diary. So what have you put then? Have you considered holding it and putting it out early on a Monday? No, for that reason I've just said. Okay, now this made me laugh. You complaining about daytime TV. Yes, it is terrible, but you don't need to watch it. You have hundreds, if not thousands of DVDs and Blu-rays. Why are you watching daytime TV? LOL. Simple answer to that one as well. It's been mentioned many times before. I don't really get the time to sit down and watch a film for an hour and a half. There are times when I can do that, but not during the daytime. In the daytime, I have times that I have to go and help with my sister doing stuff with my mum. There is the prep that I do for my mum. There is the prep the next day that I do for my mum. There is the walking that I need to do during the week to exercise to get that done. When work comes along, there will be an 8-hour stint there. But if I put something on, I'd need to pause it, then go away, then come back and unpause it, etc., etc. It doesn't really work very well. Daytime TV, I can either like it or lump it, or it's on in the background, or I can just sit down and go, what's this bloody nonsense, and channel surf. Doesn't really work with the stuff that I watch. Most of the stuff I watch, the programs are 30 minutes, 1 hour, hour and a half, or films. Films being generally I do say, use that word, 90 minutes plus. And mostly something where you need to have concentration on it. And my concentration lapses when I know I have to go away and look after my mum. It's a trap that I'm in, but it's looking after my mum, and I'd never have it any other way. And there are times I can watch stuff. You will notice that if you ever go and see Ian Hill, The Ramblings, you will see I've watched these films, very few of them, and sometimes I'll mention a TV program and they will be those 45-minute things, right? So yes, it's very easy for me to turn the telly on and say, Frasier's on. And I've seen Frasier, got the box set, got the Blu-rays, watched it. If I have to be dragged away, I go, well, I know what happens. Not a problem. Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmare. Who gives a shit? Gonna go in, badmouth it, bring his team in, do a revamp, do a new menu, do a live opening, goes away going, I hope I put them on the right step, bugger off. That's the show. Every time it's the same. You're only interested in the arguments that's bringing this restaurant that's losing money and they're in $1 million in debt back to life. See what I mean? Couldn't give a shit if I missed it or not. Falling in bed, the same. you know, battle bots. Only I'm so upset if I've missed the actual battle. See what I mean? Magnum, seen them. Kojak, seen them. See? Daytime TV. Knockabout, who cares if you miss it type thing. So, yeah, I don't watch Loose Women and all of that sort of bollocks. TV. Hope that answers your question. And that's the end of the comments, by the way. So we move very quickly into the rest. And thank you so much, Sandra. It's very nice that you wrote that as a laugh. I had a laugh with that. That was funny. And I gave straight answers to it. But I could make a funny joke about it. But that is the true answers to it. And I hope whatever you're watching, you get your love and benefit from it. I know you will. Salute to you. Thank you so much for that. And if you had a channel, I'll be promoting it. I am subscribed to you, if I remember rightly. But anyway, here we go. We've watched on YouTube, which, as anybody knows, is the general stuff that I watch on YouTube, and not necessarily something I watch on a weekly basis, apart from 4. And those are in stone for me to watch, and they are This Week in Retro, Techmoan, Gadget Show, and Chronologically Gaming. Now, Techmoan didn't do anything this week, but he did say he was having a holiday. Don't blame him. His edits and his professionalism are fantastic. This Week in Retro, a good one again this week. It was, the subjects were Wire Mini, See You Online, and Head Over Heels 2. Head Over Heels 2 probably being the big one, really, even though it was the third one, because a programmer who wrote the original one 30 odd years ago has now done, finally, the sequel, Head Over Heels 2. It's got to be the news, hasn't it, really? So there were other stuff in there that, if you, by the name of the title, sounds like something you'd like to watch, please do. It was a great show to watch. I loved the hour that I watched with that. The Gadget Show, we reveal the hottest tech of 2026. Yeah, could be the hottest tech. Some of it, yeah, I wouldn't mind having. Other stuff, couldn't give a monkey's aunt for it. Entertaining, really quite like that one. Chronologically Gaming. The unfortunate thing about Chronologically Gaming is he's doing now the cleanup of December. So he's still in December 82. He's doing a cleanup of the whole of 82. The games that he's showing now are stuff that has just recently been found as being able to be emulated, so he can show it off. The big game that came out in December 82 that he sort of like showcased was a ZX81 game called Alien Dropout, which I don't remember playing on my ZX81, but I didn't play too much on my ZX81. I had it for a short period of time. But always a fantastic watch. I look forward to Wednesday. I can't join him on Tuesday night. It's on at 4 a.m. for us. So I have to watch the recap when I wake up. So it's always great on a Wednesday to watch that. Other stuff I watched was GameSpot. Future Game Show, the Summer Showcase 2026 Live was on Friday. That showed the trailer and announcement of Guild Wars 3, which I'm optimistic about. So let's see what happens with that. But that GameSpot live broadcast had so many AAA titles that I looked at and went, oh my God, it's so similar to what we've had already. Why bother? And there was a couple of surprises in there. So I was not sad about watching the whole thing live. Then we've got the Back Focus. That's a channel, the Back Focus. It was the item that I saw was called Acting Choices That Made Us, right? Mrs. Doubtfire, Timeless. And it was interesting to watch that because although I've got no end of documentaries on Mrs. Doubtfire, it emphasised certain things like about Robin Williams' energy, how Sally Fields didn't find Robin Williams that funny, but did like his energy and his acting and professionalism and his joy and life in general in regards to caring. Always lovely to see that. And yeah, I could understand where some of it, I mean, Robin Williams was so fast, some of it I just didn't understand. So yeah, it wouldn't be funny to me either, but I'd be laughing just because I'd be going, I don't get it, but I know it's funny. You know what I mean? But anyway, that was that. That was great. Then there was an episode of Gen X Collect, which I watch sometimes. Great channel, by the way. I'm subscribed to him. But I only collect a certain amount of cards, so I don't watch all of them, like the Disney stuff, in regards to Mickey Mouse and that. But he did a video called Searching for Trading Card Grails. And that was great. He opened up a box and he was hoping he'd find a grail. And it's always fun to see people opening the cards and going, oh, I've got this. Oh, got that one, blah, blah, blah. Loved it. Absolutely fantastic. Definitely worth a watch. Gen X Collect. Go and subscribe if you want, if you're that interested. It's a fun thing. Trading cards. A fun thing. Not something, for everybody. But there we are. I won't pass comment on anybody on that. Then there's a channel called Tachyon Pulse Sci-Fi Podcast. They did a broadcast on Stargate SG-1 and Babylon 5 are unwatchable sci-fi. There was a mention in a document that watching these old sci-fi shows are not worth it anymore. So much against that opinion. I watch everything, and it's up to me. I don't think it's unworthwhile, especially if you've seen it before. But even if you're first time coming back to it, you might find you get addicted. It's the pace, the look, the story that matters, right? So there we go. That's my opinion on that. Then I watched a channel called Pixel Play. Oh, Play Package, right? Did Apple II, the computer that made modern gaming. In some ways, I'd agree with that. The Apple II came out and was considered to be the Holy Trinity, part of the Holy Trinity. That was the Texas, the Commodore PET, and the obviously Apple 1 and 2. And the Apple 1 and 2 had some fantastic games. Was it that made modern gaming? Possibly not. I mean, there's nothing wrong with some of the games that came out on the PET. I will say that. And it was so close to the Atari 800 as a computer coming out, which is what, 78, 79, that it means that you've got a year's worth of Apple II gaming that is supposed to have changed how we think about gaming. And I would say the Apple was superseded, I think, by Atari very, very quickly in regards to that. But I totally get the sentiment on it. Yeah. And then actually I did watch Apple Music on YouTube. It was the 10th anniversary of Rocket Hours, which is Elton John's channel that he does week on week. It was his 10th anniversary and he had a load of special guests, so that was brilliant. Then we move on to film, TV and soundtrack YouTube, and we start off with Ian Hill, The Ramblings, who I do a live with, and he's got a fantastic channel. I ain't joking. The stuff I'm going to read out, he did in a week. And I did what? One diary and a short, which was the week before, actually. This is what he did. Top 5 action adventure films, 1941 to 1947. Remember, those are all individual videos to watch. 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47. Wow. Then, Doctor Who review of the Faceless Ones. That must be 20 minutes long. X-Files review, Season 6, Episode 14. Snap. What I Have Watched, Episode 21. That's everything he watched in the week. And my God, he's watched an awful lot, so that'll be great. I'm 66, birthday packages. Birthday pickups it was, actually. Brilliant. Amazon birthday package. That was from me, but I'm not trying to force you to go and watch that. That's just a little birthday present if you wanted to see what it was. My top 10 feel-good movies, the community question answered by our good friend Ian. Brilliant, marvellous, and live with me on Del Boy. 3 hours of random talk in a pub. Like environment. Fantastic. I look forward to Wednesday every week. My God, man, you're retired. Is this how it's going to be? I'm going to need a bigger pad. Look how much it takes up of my pad, that top bit there, look. Jesus. Right. Move it. Brilliant channel. Go and subscribe, look. Fantastic fella. Nicest bloke you'll ever come across on YouTube. Brilliant. Moving on, there's the Movie Collector, who I watch most weeks now. 67th British Film Collection Convention. First look. Yes, there's a convention going on. It was a first look. All sorts of movie stuff was there. Projectors, film reels, films that you could buy, guests, signatures, photographs being taken, all sorts of stuff. Great. Brilliant. Fantastic channel. Go and look at that. Just Joshings did a couple of shorts. They were film reviews of Backrooms and Scary Movie. Always a great watch. Josh has a different type of opinion and outlook on films than I do. So it's always great to sort of like listen along for me. Mondo Chelovic Movies did a box of 1970 toys. There we were talking about toys that I was about a week or so ago. And Mondo comes out with a no end of 1970 toys that he used to have, and you know, some of them he still had in a box, so that was great. Jim Jam Movies and TV, he did Jim Jam in Vegas part 1 and 2. Yes, he's been on holiday. He's now done his little trip to Vegas, come back, edited a little video together, even showed him collecting some films and TV shows. Brilliant. So good that he's able to do something like that. I'd love to go back to Vegas. I've been to Vegas, must be 20 times, and always have the same opinion of the place, but it is a nice place to go. Blue Roy Movies is the next one. 10 feel-good movies, so he answered the community question as well, and weekly watches from the collection. He showed off, just like Ian does, films he's watched this week. They're always good to watch because there might be a film in there that you go, ooh, didn't know that was out, might have that. Or same thing for watching them. So that's really good. So Excelsior, and please like and subscribe to him and all the channels before that. They all deserve your attention. Commode on Film did the Odyssey weird casting drama. So there's been some drama in the Odyssey casting, the film The Odyssey with Nolan at the helm. Worth you having a little listen to that. And Commode and Mayo's Take is another channel that they've got, which was reviews of Masters of the Universe, Savage House, Scary Movie, and Box Office Top 10, which is always great to listen to, see whether they're the same as what you think is the number one film this week. And the last one is Muckman Movies, who did May Blu-ray pickups, and the top 10 feel-good pickups as well, which from Muckman is a very small number of videos. Get out and do some more, you lazy devil. No, seriously. Some great stuff there. He edits so well, and the background he's got, which is his own kitchen staring at his collection of Blu-rays, DVDs, etc., looks exceptionally impressive, and he has an awful lot to say. So that's the reason for going to look at that. I'm just going to take a little break now so I can get some stuff, but I'll be back in seconds for you. And I know that was seconds for you, but I'm glad to have that little bit of a break. And while I did, I was just watching a channel called Dr. Incompetence. Now, I only discovered him this week, and I was going to mention him next week. But he's just brought out, he does these reviews of role-playing games, which interest me. And because Denny brought up, I might start doing things like this. This is what I'd expect a little bit from Denny. I'm going to go to my overhead cam. He's just brought out a game. It's on my phone there. Look, don't know if you can see that. It's called Runehaven Indie Atmospheric Roguelike Dungeon Crawler. He's just said it's been released on Steam. It is under £6. It looks like it's right up my street. So there you are, Runehaven. Going to look at that after my mum's gone to bed. Possibly have a little look at that. And Dr. Incompetent is the channel. Hope you're able to see that little picture of it there. It looks very nice. I like that type of thing, especially at that price. So we move on to the last thing, gaming and tech YouTube. And as you know, these are people that I know that chat to me outside of YouTube, and I look at their channels and I'm subscribed to them, and there's a lot more that I'm subscribed to as well. But these are the ones that I've watched this week. Down the Rabbit Hole, he did a PS1. California Surfing is also gnarly, dude. I like his titles to his channels. I wish I could think of something exciting in mine. But that was quite interesting. Go and watch that. The effects were quite nice. I'm not really into surfing, but the effects of the waves were really nice, which is what I liked about that. And he also did an episode called I Made a 6th Scale 80s Cabinet for my iPod. Yes, we all used to have little iPods. My one was a Nano after I moved away. But the iPod was a nice little device. I found it to be much like the iPhone, but without the phone bit. But if you've got an old one and it's dead and it's doing nothing, he made a little cabinet for it and put Grid Runner on it. Really good. Definitely recommend watching that. I bow to your creativity there, Keith. Down the Rabbit Hole, brilliant, fantastic. Robert's Retro Gaming is next. Another Canadian royalty. Probably, I was going to say probably king, but that would knock down the Rabbit Hole down a little bit. Maybe they could jointly monarch over Canada. But anyway, this is what he did. And oh my God, look how much it takes up of my pad, right? He did Dwarf Fortress Classic episode 41, Minecraft Play episode 196, moving very, very closer to the 200, Pico 8 gameplay of something called Mystery, NES gameplay of Spy Hunter, which I commented on because Spy Hunter brings back so many memories. Arcade gameplay of Do Run Run, which I did not play in the arcades but did play under emulation many years ago. Commodore 64 gameplay of Steg the Slug, which was quite funny to watch. I quite enjoyed myself with that. Atari 8-bit gameplay of Marauder, Penn State, Frank and Mark, and Blinky's Scary School. Some of those old, some of those a little bit more modern. Absolutely fantastic. Loved all of them. So thank you so much, Robert, for everything that you do, and thank you very much for your comment. Steve still plays games. Did quite a bit of stuff this week. ZX Spectrum gameplay of Mind Out 2. NES gameplay of mixed NES games. He's expanding into some things that he doesn't normally do, which is great to see people outside of their comfort zone. Atari 800 gameplay of something called Upward, which I really liked. I fancied having a go on that. Switch, he used to do coding on it, on an app called Fuse, and he wanted to demonstrate not only homebrew games that he didn't do, but also his own, which was really nice. I'd seen some of them before, but his channel's gone now. So watching it under Steve Still Play Games, his new channel, was great to reminisce over that. And a PC game called Fate Keeper, which, I have to turn around and say I informed him of. Let's say that. And he played an hour of it last night, and it was really, really fun to watch. Really fun to watch. I hope he continues to get enjoyment out of that game. I'll say no more. Salute to Steve. Thank you so much for all your efforts, and thank you for being such a close mate and understanding certain things when I talk to you. 20th Century Gaming did a couple of videos. ZX Spectrum Pi Bald, which was a very quick video on the fastest cuber he's ever played. And I'd agree, bloody hell, that thing moves. And Commodore 64 live stream yesterday while the football was on. So I was sort of like watching him and watching a bit of the football before I went to bed. That was interesting, great, always great to see his live stream. Colin Jones, aka Ponder, did Everything C64 June Challenge, which is Dino Eggs, and he did Mainmeister's High Score Kerfuffle, which is doing Do Run Run, which I mentioned earlier with Robert's Retro Gaming. So you get to see a couple of things going on with that little competition that they're having. And then we've got my old friend Mainmeister, who did games with stonking music tracks, and it took me back to us doing a collaboration together of our favorite arcade games with music in. Well, he didn't just do arcade games, he did computers and consoles, and played those with the music up, and it was great to listen to those lovely Sid and Sonic tones from our previous technology. And that's the end of the written side of the diary. So we just moved to overhead cam on certain things that have turned up this week. Here's a couple of them. We have got the Steelbook of Escape from LA. Now, I looked at my collection and I didn't have that even as a DVD. And I remember memories of going to California and seeing that as a premiere on the week that I landed, that the plane landed in Americas. And I was disappointed with certain aspects of it because I so much love Escape from New York, which was a much earlier film. This one was a much later film. But it is its 30th anniversary. It's a lovely looking case. There's the back of it if you want to do a freeze frame of that. Glad it's now in my collection. Fantastic. Then there's one that was recommended to me, which was Sliver. That turned up, I think, on Monday or Tuesday. It's a nice looking steelbook. Bit more imagination on this one. Quite like it. I'm looking forward to seeing that film. I think I have seen it, but looking forward to that. This one is in a Warner box, so just give me a moment to open it up. This one is, oh yes, One Battle After Another, which was one of my favourite films of, I think it was last year, late. It won 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture in 2025. So yes, it is last year. I remember seeing it, loved it. So glad it's now in my collection. And it includes a limited, a 24-page behind the scenes booklet, as you can see there. You can see, I think it's attached to the back there. There's the back for you to take a freeze frame. I really love that film. Cy Robson loved that film. I wish I could have seen it at the cinema, but I didn't. And then a big thank you for the next one. The big thank you goes to Muckman Movies. He pointed out this free disc box set. It is called Train to Busan Trilogy. It's like a zombie film. It's a trilogy. The second one being the Train to Busan. I'm really looking forward to seeing this. I've been meaning to get it. The reason I didn't buy it was A, the price, and B, that people were saying so much good stuff about the actual film called Train to Busan that I wanted a 4K set of this. You can get the 4K of that individually, but I don't want to buy it twice, do I? But then I remembered what Ian said and what we both and I agree. It's not about the packaging, it's about the films. And this is the best way for me to have the whole collection, even if I only want the one film, which is the middle one. This ended up being very, very cheap. And and I'm so glad that he mentioned it to me. I instantly ordered it. It came through Saturday. And that's the end. I hope you've enjoyed this diary. I'm ending it up now. It's time for me to help my sister once more and my mum. And I hope you've enjoyed this. It's a bit longer than normal, but apologies for that. I didn't think I had much to say, but I did. And see you next week. Thank you so much. Have a great rest. I hope you have a great week, and I hope you come back next week. Hopefully you'll subscribe and like, but from my point of view, it was just great that you watched this. Salute to everyone. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.